What if everything you've been told about Cleopatra's death is a lie? For over 2,000 years, history has claimed that Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, ended her own life with a deadly snake bite. But what if there was no snake? What if her death wasn't a tragic suicide, but a carefully planned execution? A queen who once controlled empires, reduced to a story written by her enemies. No witnesses, no proof, only Roman narratives. So today we're diving deep into one of history's greatest mysteries. Did Cleopatra choose death, or was it chosen for her? In the final days of ancient Egypt's last reigning queen, the air in Alexandria was thick with tension, betrayal, and the unmistakable scent of history nearing its end. Cleopatra VII, the woman who had once bent empires to her will, now found herself trapped in a tightening web spun by Rome. Her story, one of power, intelligence, love, and ambition, was about to reach its most controversial chapter. But the question that has echoed through centuries remains unresolved. Did Cleopatra truly take her own life, or was her death orchestrated by the very empire she tried to outmaneuver? Cleopatra was no ordinary ruler. She was highly educated, spoke multiple languages, and possessed a political mind sharp enough to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman power struggles. Her alliances with two of Rome's most powerful men, Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony, were not merely romantic, they were strategic. Through these relationships, she secured her throne and strengthened Egypt's position against the ever-expanding Roman Republic. However, everything changed after the assassination of Julius Caesar. Rome plunged into chaos, and Cleopatra aligned herself with Mark Antony, one of the three rulers of the Roman world. Their partnership quickly became both political and deeply personal. Together they dreamed of reshaping the Eastern Mediterranean under their control. But their ambitions alarmed another rising power in Rome, Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus. Octavian launched a calculated propaganda campaign against Cleopatra, portraying her as a manipulative foreign queen who had bewitched Antony and threatened Roman values. This narrative would later influence how history remembered her. The tension between Octavian and Antony escalated into a full-scale conflict, culminating in the famous Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. It was a decisive naval battle, and Antony and Cleopatra suffered a crushing defeat. After Actium, their fate was sealed. They retreated to Egypt, their power dwindling, their allies abandoning them. Octavian's forces advanced steadily toward Alexandria. The once mighty queen and her Roman general were now cornered, facing inevitable defeat. As Octavian's army entered Alexandria in 30 BCE, panic spread throughout the city. Cleopatra retreated to her mausoleum, a grand tomb she had prepared for herself. It was filled with treasures, gold, and symbols of her reign, perhaps a final attempt to preserve her legacy even in death. Mark Antony, believing Cleopatra had already died, fell into despair. In a tragic turn, he attempted suicide by falling on his sword. Though gravely wounded, he did not die immediately. According to ancient accounts, he was carried to Cleopatra's mausoleum, where he died in her arms. This moment marked the emotional breaking point for Cleopatra. The man she had trusted, loved, and fought beside was gone, and Rome was at her doorstep. Now alone, Cleopatra faced a grim reality. Octavian intended to capture her alive and parade her through the streets of Rome as a symbol of his victory. For Cleopatra, this was unacceptable. She had lived as a queen. She would not be displayed as a prisoner. The most widely accepted version of events comes from ancient historians like Plutarch. According to him, Cleopatra chose to end her life using an asp, a venomous snake often associated with Egyptian royalty and divine symbolism. The story describes how the snake was smuggled into her chamber, hidden in a basket of figs. She then allowed it to bite her, bringing a swift and relatively painless death. However, this version raises many questions. First, the logistics. Smuggling a venomous snake into a heavily guarded chamber would have been extremely difficult. Octavian had every reason to keep Cleopatra alive, and his guards would have been under strict orders to prevent her escape or her death. Could such a plan really have succeeded without assistance from within? Second, the nature of the asp itself. While cobras are indeed deadly, their bites do not always result in immediate death. In many cases, the process can be prolonged and painful, involving paralysis and suffocation. Yet historical accounts often describe Cleopatra's death as peaceful and composed. This discrepancy has led some historians to doubt the snake story entirely. Another theory suggests that Cleopatra used a poison cocktail, a carefully prepared mixture of toxic substances applied through a needle or consumed orally. Given her knowledge of medicine and poisons, this is a plausible scenario. Ancient sources mention that Cleopatra conducted experiments on prisoners to test different poisons, seeking the most painless method of death. If true, she may have chosen a more controlled and reliable way to end her life. But there is a darker possibility, one that shifts the narrative entirely. What if Cleopatra did not choose death at all? Some historians argue that Octavian may have ordered her execution. From a political standpoint, Cleopatra was far more dangerous alive than dead. As long as she lived, she remained a symbol of resistance, a potential rallying point for rebellion in Egypt. Killing her would eliminate that threat instantly. Moreover, Octavian controlled the narrative that followed. By presenting Cleopatra's death as a suicide, he could maintain the image of a noble Roman victory rather than a ruthless execution. It also reinforced his propaganda, depicting Cleopatra as a dramatic and emotional figure, rather than a strategic and formidable ruler. There are also inconsistencies in the historical records. Most accounts of Cleopatra's death were written decades after the event, often by Roman authors who had their own biases. None of them witnessed her death firsthand. This leaves room for interpretation and manipulation. Adding to the mystery is the fate of Cleopatra's body. She was reportedly buried alongside Mark Antony, but the exact location of their tomb remains unknown to this day. Archaeologists have searched for it for years, believing it could hold the key to understanding her final moments. If discovered, it might provide physical evidence that could confirm or challenge the traditional narrative. Despite centuries of research, the truth remains elusive. Was Cleopatra a proud queen who chose death over humiliation, orchestrating her final act with precision and symbolism? Or was she a victim of Rome's ruthless politics, silenced to secure Octavian's rise to power? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. What is certain, however, is that Cleopatra's death marked the end of an era. With her passing, Egypt ceased to be an independent kingdom and became a province of the Roman Empire. The age of the pharaohs was over, and a new chapter in world history had begun. Yet Cleopatra herself refused to fade into obscurity. Her story, filled with intrigue, passion, and mystery, has captivated generations. She has been portrayed as a seductress, a genius, a villain, and a hero. But beyond the myths and propaganda, she was a ruler fighting to preserve her kingdom in a world dominated by powerful empires. And in the end, her final act, whether by her own hand or another's, ensured that her legend would endure. Even today, more than 2,000 years later, we are still asking the same question. Did Cleopatra choose her fate, or was it chosen for her? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more historical mysteries just like this, because history is not always what it seems, and sometimes the truth is buried deeper than we think. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe Cleopatra took her own life, or was she murdered? And one last thing, where are you watching from, and what time is it right now?